You walk into the kitchen with a clear reason in mind. You know exactly why you're there, right up until the second you arrive. And then it's gone. Not fuzzy, not on the tip of your tongue, completely gone. You stand still, retracing your steps, feeling a flicker of something close to fear. It happens in the middle of conversations, too. You're mid sentence, reaching for a word you've used 1,000 times, and it simply isn't there. Not lost exactly, just not arriving when you call for it. And in that half-second pause, your mind reaches for an explanation you don't want to say out loud. If you're over 50, none of this is new to you. You've lived this exact moment more times than you'd like to admit. And if it's happened more than once this month, you've probably sat with a quiet question afterward, wondering, just for a second, if something is wrong with you. Here's the first thing worth knowing before anything else. You are far from alone in this. Millions of people over 50 have this exact moment, sometimes several times in a single week, and almost none of them say it out loud. It's one of the most common experiences nobody actually talks about. Most people stay quiet about it because they're afraid of what it might mean if they said it out loud. So they carry it silently, turning it over in private, assuming it's early proof of something they aren't ready to name, something they've spent years quietly dreading. But before your mind goes further down that road, there's real research behind this exact moment. And what it actually shows points somewhere very different from fear, somewhere far more ordinary and far more reassuring than you'd expect. Psychologists actually have a name for what just happened to you. They call it the doorway effect. And it's one of the most thoroughly studied quirks of human memory, tested again and again in laboratories, homes, and even virtual environments built specifically to recreate it. According to research from the University of Notre Dame, led by psychologist Gabriel Radvansky, this effect was tested across several separate experiments. People carried objects, held onto small goals in their mind, and simply walked, sometimes across a room, sometimes through a doorway into another. The finding held up again and again, experiment after experiment. People forgot far more often the moment they walked through a doorway than when they crossed that exact same distance while staying inside one single room. The doorway itself seemed to be the trigger. Your brain treats a doorway as what researchers call an event boundary. Crossing through one sends a signal to your mind that scene is finished. Close the file. New room, new context, new mental folder, and whatever you were holding on to gets filed under the room you just left. So when you forget why you walked into the kitchen, your brain didn't actually lose the thought. It filed it away, quite literally, under the room you were standing in when you first had it, waiting there, more than lost, for the right context to bring it back. This is not memory failing you. This is memory organizing you the exact same way it has organized your thoughts your entire life, sorting your day into rooms, moments, and chapters long before you ever noticed it happening. Here's what almost nobody tells you about this particular study. The people involved weren't over 50 at all. They were college students, 20-year-olds, sharp, decades away from this stage of life with nothing resembling the fear you might be carrying right now. And every single one of them experienced the doorway effect too. Young, quick, memory intact by every measure. And still, the doorway erased the thought just the same, as reliably as it happens to you. Age had nothing to do with whether it happened. So this was never a 50 and over problem to begin with. It's simply a human brain problem, one that has been quietly happening to you since your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, long before you ever had a reason to worry about what it meant. What's actually different now isn't the forgetting itself, it's your attention to it. At 25, you laughed it off and kept moving without a second thought. Now, at this stage of life, you stop. You sit with it. You let it mean something. That shift in attention matters more than the forgetting itself. And research on memory concerns in adults over 50 backs this up in a way that might surprise you. The moments themselves haven't necessarily multiplied, but your relationship to them has changed completely. Anxiety and attention shape how often people notice these small lapses, sometimes even more than actual memory changes do. The noticing itself isn't neutral. It's colored by worry, by years of hearing warnings, by a quiet dread that's been building long before this particular Tuesday. You've spent years hearing that forgetting at this age means something is wrong. So the instant it happens, your mind reaches for the worst explanation first, almost automatically, before it even considers the far more ordinary one sitting right in front of you. But watching yourself closely isn't the same thing as losing your edge. Those are two entirely different experiences that have been quietly tangled together in your mind for years. And here's the part: almost nobody tells you about the difference between them. You've probably heard the advice before: just walk back to the room you came from, retrace your steps, and the memory will return on its own. It sounds logical. It's the kind of tip that gets repeated so often it starts to feel like fact. But researchers actually tested this exact idea. When people retrace their steps, walking back through the same doorway to the room where they started, their memory didn't reliably improve at all. Going back didn't undo whatever had just happened in their mind. That tells us something important, something worth sitting with for a moment. This was never really about location in the first place. It's about relevance. Your brain isn't hiding the thought somewhere in a room waiting to be found. It's actively deciding in real time what's still worth carrying forward. As one researcher put it, most of what occupied your mind in the last room is genuinely irrelevant. In this one, your brain isn't broken and it isn't fading. It's efficient. Sometimes brutally so, sometimes at the cost of the one thing you actually needed to remember. So the version of forgetting you've been quietly afraid of and the version that's actually happening inside your head every single day are not the same thing at all. One is a story you were told, the other is simply how memory has always worked. Your brain after 50 isn't running out of space, and it isn't slowly failing you the way you feared. It's running a sharper filter than it used to, discarding the small, the forgettable, the irrelevant, faster than it ever did when you were younger. That's exactly why you might forget your reason for walking into a room and still remember, in perfect and vivid detail, the exact tone your daughter used on the phone last week, or the look on a longtime friend's face at dinner. Your mind isn't failing to hold information the way it used to. It's choosing, more precisely than ever before, what actually deserves the space. And increasingly, it's choosing meaning, connection, and emotion over the small logistics of a Tuesday afternoon. So the next time it happens, you're standing in a room and the reason for being there has simply vanished. You don't have to reach for fear first. You can recognize the moment for what the research actually shows it to be. You didn't lose your mind in that doorway, and you haven't lost anything today that was ever really gone. You just watched your brain do, one more time, exactly what it has always done, quietly, efficiently, and without asking your permission. If you've ever walked into a room and felt a quiet panic, that's exactly the moment this video was made for. There are millions of people in their 50s and 60s going through exactly what you're going through. Most of them have never heard it explained this way. That's what this channel is for. Real psychology, honest conversations, no pretending that this chapter of life is simple. If this helped you, subscribe. And if you know someone who needed to hear this today, share it with them.